Joining us to talk a little bit about the draft is former Bills offensive lineman Jerry Ostroski. He of the Overreaction Buffalo feed and podcast, and Jerry talks with Joe Marino and I Mondays and Thursdays as part of the Locked On Bills podcast, the Bills Squad Roundtable. Jerry, good morning.
What's going on, Jeremy? How you guys doing?
We're doing all right. Right. Wanted to get you on to talk about a couple things about this Bills draft, especially because when we talked about it earlier this week, you had a lot to say about Deone Walker, their fourth-round pick. And, I know a lot of attention's been paid to the wide receiver conversation, obviously, but the Bills draft was a lot about defense and positions they needed. And with Walker, that's a move they made a big move up for in the fourth round. So I wanted to ask you what you thought about him in general, the big body guy, and then the injury that he has been playing through and playing with, because I think there's a lot for Bills fans to kind of unpack about him as a player and how he might have been affected through that process.
We know it's when I evaluated his film, and I probably watched 5 games of his, and you dive into the 24 film, and when you're watching it, you kind of it was a bit puzzling at first as far as what do we see here other than the obvious, an absolutely enormous man. I mean, this guy, Bill Parcells used to talk about all the things, the things, I know the things I can see. Tell me the things you can't see. Well, obviously the thing you can see with him is he is a mountain. And, you had flashes on film. He put 2 or 3 plays together that he kind of shut it down. He'd struggle and, played high. And there's just a lot of question marks. And then after the draft, and you hear the fact that he has the back injury and the rumor, not confirmed, obviously, but, rumor that he's got a pars fracture, and having individuals in my house that have a pars fracture and one of them not being able to play football anymore because of it, when you put that information with what you see on tape, it makes complete sense. And one thing I want to say about this kid is, and I call him a kid, I mean, I'm old now, but he's, I think all of 20 years of age. He's incredibly tough, because if he played through that injury all season long, 12 games in the SEC, this is a tough dude. So that's something to build on. I mean, that's something you don't learn. That's something you have in you, and that's admirable. But, yeah, I mean, if you can get knowing that, then going back and watching his 23 film and seeing all the flashes and what the Bills probably saw and what the Bills are, rolling the dice on, he has a chance to be a nice player. But the main thing is they've got to get this back situation, squared away. And, you never know. You never know with these things. And obviously the Bills have experience with big, tall, long, players that have back issues. I mean, Spencer Brown had one, and they got him playing at an all-pro level. So, I think the Bills feel good about that. Obviously, their medical feels good about it. And if we can get this guy to play at 23 level, this is he could do something.
What does a pars fracture do to a player, especially, and you feel like of all the positions to play where it might be the toughest to deal with, it's obviously going to be one of the big guys?
Well, I mean, you obviously have a fracture, in your pars, your pars process there on your vertebra. It's down usually L4, L5 area, and it can cause some instabilities in that joint to where it slides, and you start getting nerve involvement. And there's a lot of things you can do. The main thing is you gotta figure out a way to get these guys symptom free, which is the pain. And then once you get the pain away, then you get your flexibility back and things like that, and your range of motion, and you eliminate stiffness and everything. But the biggest challenge for a guy like Walker is he's tall, so he's already he's a big tall guy, he's long-legged, high-hipped, and you're trying to figure out a way to alleviate pressure in that spot. And when you're not real inflexible in the hips, then your body then bends at that L4, L5, and that's why these fractures usually happen. It's a lack of hip flexibility, And when you have that, then the lack of hip flexibility, all your movement happens at that joint as opposed to the hips, and that's where the stress comes from. So the Bills are going to have to figure out a way to get this guy more flexible, work on his flexibility. Dropping weight helps, and then also how do you get lower body strength without loading the spine? And one thing about being in 2025, they've got a ton of things they can do as far as safety bars, box squats, pitch shark machine is one thing that they can do, belt squats, all those things. So there's ways around it, but it becomes a challenge, and you've got to do certain things in that weight room to be able to get that lower body strength without putting stress on that L4, L5 area.
So when you hear Brandon Beane talk about how they have a plan in mind for him and they might not take it very hard with him at all in the spring and not until maybe they get to training camp, does that kind of add up then? Like, how risky, I guess, is this pick? It's a fourth-round pick, so, that risk is baked in. He might have gone in the second round if this injury didn't exist, or the first round. I guess how risky is it, and how easily could this kind of, go poorly for Walker and not being able to stay on the field?
You don't know, and I think the biggest thing is going to be him. I mean, he's going to have to really put the work in, and if you listen to the coaches in Kentucky, you listen to his former teammates, they love the guy. He was a team captain. He was a guy that was looked up to on that roster. For all intents and purposes, everything you hear from these guys, he's a dude that does things the right way, and he cares about it, and he understands what he needs to do. So like I said, I feel much better after evaluating film, then finding out the issue, and then hearing other things over these last 4 or 5 days. I feel better where we are with him, because if they can get him playing anywhere close to 23, he has a chance to be a big-time disruptor inside. I think that, he's a player that at Kentucky, they kind of protected him a little bit. They moved him all over the place. They kind of played a modified three-man front. He would line up over the nose. Sometimes he'd line up over a guard, and there were instances he lined up in a wide 9 and rushed the quarterback from outside the tackle. So, they moved him around, tried to keep him away from a lot of just pure double teams. That's one thing that he'll have to really learn and play at this level. In our defense, he's probably going to play nose, so he's going to face those constant double teams and things like that. But he does have a knack, even though he's kind of a leaner, not really a guy that – he's got a good first step for a 6'7" dude, but he is more of a leaner and an upper body fighter. He's going to have to learn how to get his pad level down, play those NFL-type offensive linemen. But he does have a knack, even at that size, to split blocks and things. So if they can get him pain-free, he's got some ability.
Jerry O joining us on the Western Hotline. Jerry, how about TJ Sanders? The second-round pick, the Bills make moves in the second round to kind of slide up and down, and Sanders is the pick for a penetrating pass rusher on that defensive line.
I really like TJ Sanders. I think he's untapped, honestly. I think he's got a lot of ability left in him, and that's the one thing that I really like about our draft picks. I think that, I think Beane does a good job of finding guys that they can develop, and as you know, the history of the franchise, even though we expect a guy like Hairston to come in and hopefully start day one, they have done, their kind of MO is to bring rookies along a little bit slower. Obviously, TJ Sanders is a guy that's probably going to have to play right away as well, but I still think he's got a lot left to develop. I think he can get a little bit bigger, but he's got all those things you don't teach again. He's got that quickness. He's got an unbelievable first step. He gets upfield. He's got a knack for the football. Again, all intents and purposes, you listen to these guys at South Carolina, everything. He's a good kid. He works hard, and I'm excited about it. I heard Joe talking about it the other day. It's obvious. Our defense is built around analytics. It's built around big plays on defense, takeaways, negative plays, those types of things. So, if you're looking for us to come in and go get the 350-pound, 6'3" nose guard that's going to eat up 2 blocks and just sit there and maybe make 1 or 2 tackles a game, if that, but allow his linebackers to make 20, that's not what they're interested in. They want big plays up front. They want to penetrate. They want to get negative plays, turnovers, rush the passer, and TJ Sanders fits that profile to a T.
Jerry Ostroski on the Western Hotline. How about the rest of the offseason? Like, let's fit it all together, Jerry, with Michael Hoyt, Larry Ogunjobi, Joey Bosa as three big pieces added before the draft. Does that kind of get to, when you put it all together, the Bills revamp their front seven. And I think there's a stat out there called havoc rate, which is not about turnovers. It's tackles for loss and sacks and pressures. And to me, it seems like we might not be able to get the same number of turnovers from the Bills defense, but you might get just as much havoc that's wrought by this front seven.
Well, I mean, that's maybe not. I mean, this team has an amazing ability to take away the football, and we still might be there. But, obviously you didn't sign those two guys to, well, obviously Hoyt they knew. Ogunjobi they did not know about the suspension, but, it just puts an extreme amount of early pressure for these young guys to play. I think that's good. I think that's good. We all know this team is going to win games. We know this team is going to compete for the divisional championship. We know this team. It's not about getting to the playoffs; it's about finishing. And the more time you can get these young guys playing, the better. I think the key for the D-line, honestly, other than T.J. Sanders getting up to speed as quick as possible, and then you got Bosa, who's an anchor as long as he's healthy. I think Bosa's going to have a good season. I honestly do. But I think the key right now for this front, and I'm a front seven O-line guy. That's where I want. I'm getting dudes all over the place there. I'll figure everything else out. As long as we got good guys up front, we're solid. But I think the key is going to be Deone Carter. If Deone Carter can figure out the nose guard position, maybe get a little bigger, put a little more weight on, get a little stouter, and he can get some reps there while they get Walker up to speed. That's going to help this team a lot.
I want to ask you about Carter before we let you go, Jerry. Jerry Ostroski on the Western Hotline. How did you take in his rookie year? Because I feel like at the beginning of it, we saw a lot of flashes and people were really into his immediate impact. And then, is it a typical rookie kind of campaign thing? Maybe guys figure you out. You kind of have to go back to the drawing board because inactive for the AFC Championship game. Like he's a player the Bills, I'm sure, still like quite a bit, but it was a little bit of a rocky road for a rookie season.
Yeah, obviously, I talk about that all the time. People don't put enough emphasis on the rookie wall. In college football, you're playing 12 games, maybe a bowl game, or maybe going into the playoffs. But, 12 games in the league, you still got 5 left, not counting playoffs. You almost have another full season left when you get to that point in college football when you're getting ready to shut it down and go home for Christmas. So, yeah, Carter he was okay. He showed flashes. He got a little bit lost as the year went on. I think that sometimes the college guys don't understand just how much film and how much film prep you got to put in and how much you have to put an emphasis on taking care of your body because the season's so long. Unless you're just an absolute freak, and even those guys as well, you've got to really study film and you got to reinvent yourself quite a bit. You've got to learn how the guy across from you is going to play on Sunday. You've got to, learn different moves, and you can't do the same counter every time. These pros watch so much film and are so prepared that a lot of times they're waiting for things before you even do them. So, that's kind of where the maturation process comes in, right, guys? You've got to really watch that film, and you've got to really learn that, okay, this might have been my counter off of this, but now I've got to show this and go back the other way, or I've got to develop a club, I've got to develop a spin. And so, yeah, there's that, and then there's also you're going from college ball to where some of that stuff that you did works against guys that aren't going to play on Sunday, but some of those things you do are not necessarily going to work against pros. So it just takes a little bit of time to really develop your repertoire.
Jerry Ostroski on the Western Hotline. Jerry, where Bills Mafia maybe that wants to find you and hear from you more often, where are all the places they can hear you talking Bills every day?
Well, obviously we're on myself, John Fina, and Joe Miller. We started Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, and we're on YouTube and also all the major podcasting platforms. You can check us out there. We have a show right now in the off season on Sunday nights, and then we do a show sometimes on Tuesday night. My show, The Big O Show, is on Wednesday night, and then we do a daily Bills update every day. And then also you can catch me on Bill Squad on the Locked On Network Mondays and Thursdays at noon Eastern, 11 Central, where me and some guy named Jeremy, White, and Joe Burrito, we do that show. And that's been a blast. I've had a really good time with it. Excited to put another one in the can today. So those are the places. I'm at Ostroski_Big O on Twitter. And I love to converse with with Bill's Mafia there. So come reach out there, and I've got a bunch of people that'll DM me and ask me questions, and I'll answer them the best I can.
Very good, Jerry. Thanks for the time. We'll talk later today.
All right, guys. We'll see you.
Jerry Ostroski on the Wester Hotline. You can, again, as he mentioned, follow him on Twitter. Find him right there. It's Ostroski_Big O.